Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second webcast. This is a series of videos that we're trying to produce with David Webb that just dives into our fabulous history and really brings in special guests to talk about amazing things that they have interest in with David Webb. So, of course, I'm super excited to have Frank Everett, SVP of Sotheby's Jewelry Department. There he is on the screen. And, you know, we have a great friendship, Frank and I, and we have done a Frank's Files in the past. Here's a photo of us in the David Webb archive. Maybe this was about a year ago.
Yeah.
But I just want to hand it over to Frank to introduce himself. Hi, Frank.
Hi, Levi. Thank you so much. This is a pleasure. It is so much fun, and it's a great distraction at this difficult time for me especially, and everybody who's watching. So I hope we're going to provide a nice hour of just escapism and fun and beautiful jewels and history and everything that goes along with the House of David Webb, which, of course, you know, I do call myself a Webb enthusiast. And whenever people ask me about David Webb, I have to tell them the story of how I kind of fell in love with the brand, because I joined Sotheby's, it's now a little over 7 years, coming from the retail world. You know, I had sold jewelry for years, retail. I worked for Bulgari, I worked for Tiffany, I worked for Harry Winston. But when I came to Sotheby's, the very first assignment I got was to write a catalog note, and a pretty extensive one, on David Webb.
Perfect.
So the book had just come out, the beautiful book, David Webb, The Quintessential American Jeweler by Ruth Peltison.
Yeah.
I bought it, I read it, and I've been in love ever since. It really, I became a big fan. And then the following year, I got to go to that beautiful retrospective exhibition at the Norton Museum in Palm Beach.
Yes.
And that is really, I met Mark Emanuel there, who owns David Webb. And I just really became to love Webb as the artist that he was.
Absolutely. And we've always loved your enthusiasm. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
I just want to tell everyone who might be new to Zoom, maybe you're not new to Zoom, but there should be a chat feature down at the bottom, as well as a Q&A. So throughout the conversation Frank and I will have, you can submit questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those near the end. So thank you so much.
Great.
I just want to give a little bit of brand background in case anyone doesn't know about David Webb. So he was a Southern gentleman. He was from North Carolina, born in 1925. He's founded his business in 1948. By 1950, he had a cover of Vogue. So he was, you know, a meteoric rise, as we like to say. Here's some of his iconic pieces. We've got the zebra bracelet, the giraffe, an Elizabeth Taylor Maltese cross down in the bottom on the left. And here's just one of the few photos we have of him in a tux here. It's one of my favorites. But, you know, in our archive, we have so many different things. We've got drawings. Here you have a pearl earring that was a rendering for Doris Duke. Here's a newspaper clipping with Gloria Vanderbilt and her snake bracelet. The triangular peridot was owned by Marjorie Merriweather Post. So it just goes on and on and on. And, you know, doing these webcasts, we really want to explore different topics. And today's topic, of course, is Frank and his interests in Sotheby's and the connection between the brand and the auction house. So with that, I would love for you, Frank, to talk about this piece. This is
that ring. There it is. I'm wearing it. I wear it all the time. It's my David Webb coral ring. It's my ring of power. Yep. I really, the start of the ring came from the film The Devil Wears Prada, where the Stanley Tucci character wears that big ring on his index finger, the character of Nigel. And I just loved it. I loved that idea of one big statement piece. And then when I was there with you and Mark working on the videos, I was thinking about it, and I thought with my relationship and my love of Webb, it should be a Webb ring. And, you know, Mark was showing me beautiful drawers of gemstones, and then he opened that one drawer of all these pieces of coral, every color, from the palest white through shades of pink to this deep red. And this one just was the right size, the right color, and it was meant to be. Perfect. So it's my signature thing.
Yep, I've got mine on too. I thought we should match when we do this. And I love the hammering too. I mean, it's just so classic Webb.
Love it.
And
it really looks good with that tie. I didn't realize that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's like the perfect little snapshot of everything that's really emblematic about you. The jewelry, the tie, the whole setup. But, you know, just going on, I think recently we had been connected with this necklace in particular, which is going to be up for auction at Sotheby's shortly.
It will.
But it's just a beautiful, amazing piece, and I was like shocked when we saw it. You want to talk a little bit about it, and we can talk about how we work together.
This is really a showstopper. It's the one word that keeps coming back to me. Like, yes, it's beautiful. It's a magnificent jewel. It's glamorous. It's a showstopper. Okay. It's from the collection of Mary Lou Whitney. She was just a wonderful woman. I had the pleasure of meeting her a couple of years ago. Wow. And I had seen this necklace before. So we now will be selling her collection later this year. Mm-hmm. And this is just the crown jewel of her whole collection. It's so special. It's really one of the happiest jewels I've ever seen. Totally. And it's that beautiful carved emerald, which removes as a brooch. Yep. And it's one of the few times I think where the pendant comes off and the necklace truly stands on its own. Agreed. Sometimes you take the pendant off and it's like, oh, no, I'm never going to wear it that way. Right. As just a gemstone collar, it really works beautifully. And then you've got that fabulous brooch, that huge, I can't remember what the size actual is of that carved emerald, but
oh yeah, it like fits in your palm. I mean,
it's massive. It's fantastic. Yeah. So I just think this is just a great jewel from a great American lady of style, and we're very fortunate to have it. So it's going to be exciting to represent this piece later this year from Mary Lou Whitney's collection.
And I'm not sure if people know this, but auction houses do a lot of authenticities when they have important pieces like this come up. So that's how you and I work together. And you sent it in to have it authenticated. Obviously, we knew it was from an important collection. There was no question about it at all. But to be able to go through the process of looking up all the details about the piece and how it came about. So I was able to find the original rendering here.
Which is incredible and adds such value to our clients in the catalog, especially. Like, our catalogs are really a record of something. Yeah. So they're not just there to promote the piece for sale, especially when it's an entire collection of a particular person. It's a record. It's a memory of that for the family and loved ones, or just people that were friends and fans of somebody like Mary Lou Whitney. Definitely. So I think you really offer us all that research. You can tell us the day it was bought, the price that was paid, show us the sketch. And this one is a good example, like the diamond bracelet from Mrs. Whitney's collection that we also are going to be selling. That I assumed that they were both, because they're both such spectacular pieces. I thought, oh, they must have been custom designs. They must have been made to order for her. Right. And you said,
yeah, that was super interesting because like you see the drawing, it's just the drawing of the necklace. So the necklace and the brooch were made at different times, made for stock. Maybe David Webb had collected the big carved emerald just in his own travels and discovery, and he made the brooch by itself. So she purchased, I think they were made in the late 60s, and then I think she purchased them in like the early 70s. So they were around for a bit in the store. You see the drawing, but then you also see this page from a lookbook that I think was in the early 70s, maybe 71 or 72. So it was later presented as this set. Here's a great photo, which we both were gasping about the other day.
This is a perfect example. We didn't find this picture. You did. Yeah. And I would love to use this in the This is glamour, right? This is high glamour. For the first, you've got Joan Rivers there in like some Arnold Scaasi creation. Yeah. I think that's Susan Lucci on the left with her disco ball earrings. And then there's Mary Lou in the center having a ball wearing that gorgeous necklace. That's a great picture.
And there were other shots from whatever this party was, and you can see the pendant is just sort of tucked down in the top of her dress in this very moment. But I mean, she looks so fabulous. It's very like a regal composition for the stones with the emeralds, the rubies, and the sapphires and the diamonds. And when you see it in person, the necklace, and I'm not gonna lie, I did try the necklace on. But the cabochon, the like sugarloaf cabochon of the emeralds are so tall, so juicy. They're like gumdrops, like candy.
Which I think you noticed too, like in the little video that we both posted on Instagram yesterday. I had that in really nice daylight by a window, and because those sugarloaf emeralds are so tall, as you say, so much depth, they just glow. Like they're just beautiful glowing green beads. It's a very special necklace, I'm telling you. It's one of my favorite web pieces that I've ever worked with.
Love it. And in addition to all the like specific renderings and the lookbook, I did come across this page from Town & Country, which was also in the early 70s. They did this spread of like important women and their children, and the children all had jewelry on. And what struck me about it, I recognized the necklace. There it is without the pendant, which is interesting. But then Town & Country in I think it's 2015, 2016 maybe, I can't read the date at the bottom, but the picture on the other side is Town and Country revisiting that theme and having children in jewelry. And we were lucky enough to be included in this shot as well, where the bracelet on the bottom.
Great.
Yeah.
Great,
So,
both great shots.
Connectivity, yeah.
Yeah, I guess Town and Country has a long history of love and appreciation of jewels and Webb in particular.
Totally. So this was another jewel that you had brought up as one of your favorites. And
yeah, so this is one of my favorite pieces ever in terms of Webb, because for a few reasons. I mean, you always have to talk about animalia, right? Like
yes.
Webb loved animals in every way, shape, and form, and used them in earrings, brooches, rings. The bangle is, to me, like the classic. I know Diana Vreeland gave Webb a huge lift by wearing that zebra bangle all the time. It was one of really her signature pieces of jewelry that she took it off, but wore it a lot.
Yeah.
So for me, this one stands out because it's so happy. The colors, I love white enamel, always have with yellow gold, and just the little accents of green just make it a beautiful, happy spring, summer look. I think the fish form really lends itself to the circular nature of the bangle. It just makes sense. That fish sort of jumping out and curving its body and the tail coming up. So I think that just makes me happy. And it also came from a great collection originally came from the collection of Evelyn Lauder,
yes.
And sold by the family to benefit Breast Cancer Research Foundation. Nice. So we just at Sotheby's have a great relationship with the Lauders and with BCRF. This particular piece was originally sold for that benefit. So it all just adds up. And now it's in another great collection. You know where it is, but we can't name her. But she also has lovely things and really has a great appreciation for David Webb too. So it's just, that's a great story. Yeah. A great design, iconic, from one great collection to another, benefiting an important cause. Like it all adds up to perfect story to me.
And specifically with the enamel on this one, like I've seen it both ways with enamel and just gold, but the way the scales of the fish are articulated and the sort of bulbous nature you get of the enamel on the scale is just so satisfying and beautiful.
To me, from all the animalia, this one design-wise makes so much sense. I love it.
Agreed. This one, please take it away. I'll add on, but go for it.
Well, so this was another example of really learning from your research, from Webb's research, the book mostly. This came to us, and I knew I loved it, and I knew why I loved it. I think because of the wave, or the little wave motif carved into the jade that's mimicked in the hammered gold.
Exactly.
So that's fabulous.
That's called a rouilly form. So on the bottom, well, you can see it sort of in the offset picture. That's the bottom pendant, and it's called the rouilly, which also, it's a mushroom form, but it's also a cloud form. And that's what the carving in the jade is. The jade section 1, section up on the pendant, it might be dolphins or something, and then you've got the jade discs throughout the chain. But yes, it was featured in our book, and what's super interesting to me about the rouilly is that it's throughout all of David Webb's Ancient World collection, which references all these different cultures and time periods. And so you see that also in the hammered gold, as you mentioned. You've got we sort of call it a cloud, like a double C scroll or like a cloud form. It's got all these different meanings and connotations, but it's just consistently throughout the work.
Well, to me, this one, I probably not very eloquently always use the word mashup. That Webb was, those legendary trips to the Met every Saturday, and he was inspired by Greco-Roman and Chinese and pre-Columbian and Indian art and everything else. And he did what he loved. He put it together in any way that he felt worked stylistically. And, this is so much more than meets the eye, because when you first see it, you're like, oh, it's a glamorous 70s heavy, long necklace. It's awesome. It's great. Look. But it's more than that. And I also learned at the time when I first saw this necklace about how he incorporated, ancient objects that he also collected. So these are not, this jade was not carved for the purpose of this necklace. The necklace was made around these old pieces.
Exactly true. And that's a perfect segue here, because I pulled the original drawings for both the fish and the rouilly necklace, because like you see the blank spaces in the necklace drawing, that would be literally David Webb taking the piece of jade that he had collected, the antique jade, putting it on the paper, sketching it with a pencil to know the exact shape, and then designing around that. And to this day in the stone room, we still have like a tremendous stock of David Webb's original collection of antique jade that we can pick one up and say, okay, let's do it. This is the time for this slice right here. So
It's amazing. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize that too, that you still are producing designs that have never been made, he was so prolific and such a workaholic that you have thousands of designs in the archives that have never been made yet.
Yep. We used to hear a story that David Webb would like leave the office, he'd get halfway home and have to go back to the workshop and like sketch a design because he had that in his head and he just had to get it out. So there's about 40 to 50,000 renderings, illustrations, drawings in the archive, and we just haven't even scratched the surface of like the enormity of everything that's there. So we're super lucky.
Yeah, yeah. And all before he passed away at the age of 51, I think? 50.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was super sudden pancreatic cancer. He would be in his mid-90s today if he had lived.
Incredible output of work for one man.
Absolutely. These are beautiful. I think these were just from December 2018 maybe, but
yeah,
they're like fabulous girandole earrings.
I just couldn't stop handling these earrings. I wore them quite a bit around the office. I'm not going to lie. If you tried on Mary Lou Whitney's necklace, I tried these on quite a few times.
Good.
These are incredible. And they're just that sort of 70s updated girandole earring that many houses were doing. Van Cleef and Arpels. I mean, Webb was not. But these are distinctively Webb. You don't look at them and wonder who made them. And there are just certain details. One of them that I love is that when you take the pendants off, the big button at the top is so substantial, it's a great earring on its own.
Totally.
And often that's not the case.
Right. My favorite thing about them, which you don't often see, is that the fact that the diamonds are all set in yellow gold. Usually we're setting diamonds in platinum, but that just gives it so much like warmth to the Mughal style with the carved emeralds and everything. It's great.
This is on exhibition. I remember this was one of my 5, fan favorites because every woman that saw them loved them, whether she was bidding on them or not, or even felt like she had the lifestyle to wear them wasn't the issue. It was just about want to try them on, feel them move, see what they look like, all that color, all that, jewel. They're just, I think they're terrific.
Perfect. And to me, they made me think of the fabulous and iconic Jackie Kennedy.
Yes.
The photo here is her in 1966. She's in Seville, Spain. She's at a bullfight. There was like a big debutante ball going on in Seville. Grace Kelly was there, Jack Kennedy, her whole crew. So we had one photo of her wearing these earrings at the Metropolitan Opera, and it was like a full body shot. So the earrings were very small in the photo. We could barely see, and we did some hunting, and I just knew there had to be another photo of her wearing them. And so this is what I came up with on Spanish eBay a few years ago. But they're earrings that we still produce, and they definitely have the same sort of vibe to the other earrings. There they are on the bottom.
Yeah, and I remember seeing those in Sotheby's catalog.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
I have it somewhere on the shelf over here.
And these also detach, so you can just wear the top, or you can sort of change around.
They're awesome.
They're lovely. And yes, this is such a good one too. It's a dragon holding a carved emerald of substantial size. And the photo with me holding it in my hand, I love that it says how to get riches, because I always think of dragons as like hoarding treasure, and that's exactly what this dragon is doing. Please go ahead.
It was just one of my favorite pieces because it's so substantial. I love a brooch. Always encouraging people I just think the brooch is the truest form of a jeweler's art because it's not encumbered by having to fit on a wrist or a finger. It doesn't have to hang from an earlobe. It's just a little sculpture that you can wear. And this thing is so fabulous. The way he's guarding that big carved emerald, and it incorporates, rubies, diamonds, emeralds. So, everything's there that you need.
Yep.
And it's just fantastic. And I remember when we were selling this one, it really was the peak of Game of Thrones mania. So people posted this, and there were a lot of hashtags, Mother of Dragons on this one.
I bet. So for this one, what I want people to know is that it's interesting that David Webb itself also buys back pieces at auction. This is a piece that we have acquired from Sotheby's for our museum collection. And I have a picture here on the other side that shows it on display at the Doris Duke's house in Newport, Rhode Island, the Restoration Foundation. It's called Rough Point, the house. And we had an exhibition there in 2018 that was all about Doris Duke and her interests and how she had a hand in all of the designs of the jewelry that she had made with David Webb. So, well, Doris Duke had nothing to do with this piece. We wanted to draw the connection between the dragons and the Rouilly and the enamel work and all these things that both David Webb and Doris Duke were interested in. So the sort of Chinese vase on the side there, that was a piece that she had.
It's perfect. I mean, it just looks perfect in that setting, and it is really a special, unique thing. I'm so glad that it ended up back with you.
Thank you. We are too. So this is sort of the transition in the talk where we want to talk about your favorite pieces at auction, of course.
Yeah.
But we also want to talk about like high glamour and the connection to Hollywood, which is also a topic I know that's near and dear to your heart. So, I always like to talk about the 50s as, at least in the world of David Webb, as a very sort of traditional jewelry. He was definitely providing things to women that they wanted and that they, could wear during the day. A lot of gold, a lot of pearls, sort of your typical jewelry from the period, which is great. And these are fabulous shots, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But then once you get to the 60s and 70s, it's the boldness, the hammered gold, the color, the design that really comes out. And he's truly into his own, I feel.
Yeah, well, I think partly he's following fashion. So, things are emerging in fashion in the 70s that weren't acceptable in the 50s and 60s.
Right.
But he was also starting out his business. So when you're starting out, you need to really do what the client wants.
Absolutely.
Whereas as you are established, he had the luxury of starting to be able to create things that he loved.
Yes.
And then hopefully the buyers would follow, and they certainly did.
Yep.
So I think it kind of makes sense. Those early Vogue shots are great because they just harken back to a time when you've heard me say this too before. When we get big collections at Sotheby's, there's always David Webb in them, and those women got dressed 3-4 times a day. So they weren't sitting around in gym clothes and yoga pants during the day at home. They were putting on a smart day dress with good basic gold jewelry. And then if they went to a lunch, then it went to a suit with maybe a brooch with some stones or some great pearl earrings. Then if you had cocktail, you had a cocktail dress with some more serious gems, some diamonds. Right. And then there might be a dinner with a gown and the big guns. Right. So it really, they needed all those jewels. They had a lot going on.
You're right. I could not resist, as you know, your favorite, Cher. I needed to put her in here for you. It's Cher.
Okay.
Here she is.
We could just stop now because what else do you need? You've got Richard Avedon. Yep. You've got David Webb jewels. Yep. You've got Vogue, and you've got Cher. I don't know what could you do to change or improve upon this picture? Nothing, in my opinion.
Not much. And there's the drawing for one of the cuffs she's wearing. She's got, I don't know if you can notice, her hair is wrapped around her arm.
Oh yeah.
It's just fabulous. One of my favorites.
It's fabulous. There she is again.
There she is again. Also Avedon. Very glamour. I mean, the title of the article is literally big time glamour. The other image is from Hero in Harper's Bazaar, and she's got the gold Minaudier. It's just fabulous also. But this sort of transitions into an earlier period. It's true. It's the late 50s into the 60s. But David Webb had a great friendship with this movie producer named Ross Hunter. Here he is. And he's wearing a David Webb stud set that's pictured below. It's with enamel and lapis. But Ross Hunter produced all these films that you see on the list: Pillow Talk, Midnight Lace, Portrait in Black, Backstreet, all these.
Classics.
So there was an earlier project that I had done last summer in London where we were talking about David Webb jewelry in fashion photography and film. So I had gone through all these movies and screenshotted them and to first note that the jewelry was announced in the title card back when movies had title cards, which is kind of rare, I think. But then throughout the whole movie, it's just David Webb jewelry, David Webb jewelry, David Webb jewelry. So the first
I can't think of another example of film credits that contained, jewels by.
Right.
Certainly gowns by Adrian, costumes by Edith Head. You still see costume designers credited as they should be, but I don't remember seeing specifically jewels by except for all these films.
Well, look for it next time you watch an old movie, but the first one here, it's interesting that it says Miss Doris Day was in Pillow Talk, and it says Miss Day's Jewelry by Laken. So Laken was a department store, I guess. But here's a screenshot where they're all talking on the phone. This is sort of the set that she's wearing with lapis and diamond and gold. But here, this is a scan of a style card that we have in the archive. And style cards are like index cards, recipe cards. They show when something was produced. I don't know if you can see the original date up there. Let me move my cursor here. 1957 is when it was produced. This Maltese cross that she's wearing in that shot. But it's got all the breakdown of like how many diamonds, the 18 karat yellow gold, platinum, diamond, pearl clip, it says. It's got all the costing from the era, but then it says sold to Lakin. So for the first movie, they were sourcing jewelry from one of the department stores that he was selling jewelry
Interesting. So they credited the retailer.
They credited the retailer. But, oops, sorry, let me get my mouse back here. But there she is wearing the brooch again. But as we move on to like Midnight Lace, it says Jewels by David Webb. So maybe David Webb went to Ross Hunt and was like, no, we need to adjust this credit a little bit.
I'd like the screen credit, please.
Yes. So, a lot of this work was just done by looking at the movie, kind of trying to guess which pieces were David Webb. If in fact they all weren't, maybe they all were, but it was sort of hard to tell. So I had to go through these cards and see. On this one, it says D-Day Midnight Lace. So sometimes they did put the name of the movie on the style card.
Very cool.
Jewels by David Webb, again, portrait in black. This is Lana Turner being very dramatic. This one was actually sold to a private client, but it was produced and just sitting around by the time the film came around. Backstreet. This one's so great. Susan Hayward, I think. The turquoise necklace over there in the corner is beautiful.
Beautiful.
This was
so many brooches.
So many brooches. I love all the scenes talking on the phone because.
But see, like look at her on the phone. Like there's her day jewelry, right? Like she's just had like a very understated look with some nice gold. But believe me, by 6 o'clock when it's time for a martini, she'll be changing those jewels.
Do you remember when Meryl Streep was in The Post and there's the scene when she answers the phone and takes off her earring? Like that is so this moment of like showing all the jewelry perfectly, like ring, bracelet, necklace, earring, like everything. So I just loved all these phone shots. If a Man Answers, jeweled by David Webb. This is Sandra Dee.
Right.
And that shot down there, she's like pushing a buzzer for a door, and it's just like this great jewelry moment.
There's the bracelet.
Yeah. We actually have one of these rose brooches in our museum collection that has not diamonds in the center, but turquoise. It's like the rosebud is round, the turquoise, worn fabulously on this like boat neck black dress. And that one also says Build to Lakin, so that's interesting. Madam X is probably my favorite of the swath of Ross Hunter movies.
And just look at that glamour. Look how glamorous.
Lana Turner, this whole turquoise set. We get a lot of requests for this turquoise set to reproduce it, and every time we've done it, it just like sells like this. So it's beautiful.
That's a movie to watch right now, since we're all at home, spending so much time and trying to think of interesting things to watch. I think Madam X is a good one.
Totally. This is another character in Madam X. I think this actress's name is Constance Bennett. Couldn't find a lot about her, but there's Ross Hunter, Sandra Dee, and this fabulous flower brooch as well.
Fabulous rose.
Yeah. Throwing this one in there, it's a little bit cheating because it's Elizabeth Taylor a little later in the 70s, and these aren't jewels that she had or that David Webb had placed in the movie. These were her own jewelry. So, we love showing her lion necklace there. The movie was called Ash Wednesday from 1973. The only thing that isn't David Webb in that shot is the ring, which was Van Cleef, but
Well, we love when ladies wear their own jewels on film. There's a lot of history of that when the costume department doesn't come up with anything nice enough and they just say, I've got better.
Right.
Gloria Swanson did it. Joan Crawford did it. Elizabeth Taylor did it. It's like, no, I need nice things.
Very much so. So that was our prepared slides version of this talk, but now I'm ready for questions.
Great.
And I am receiving some right now. So
Excellent.
Let's see. We have a question from Denmark that is specifically for Frank. For Frank, of all the personal collections you've handled, who had the best jewelry? That's a tough question. Oh my God.
I just listen. For me, friends and family have forbidden me to even mention this name, but it always goes back to Bunny Mellon. I was privileged enough to work very closely on her estate, and we sold her beautiful jewelry collection at Sotheby's. Some incredible things from Verdura, from Van Cleef. Cartier, just beautiful things. But what was really special was her massive collection of Schlumberger.
Right.
She donated it all to the Virginia Museum of Fine Art, but we were lucky enough to take the jewels to New York, catalog them, photograph them, work with them. We housed them for about a year and a half until the estate was settled, and then we sent them to Richmond, to the museum, where they had been shown beautifully and toured the country. And the collection was just amazing. So for me, it will always be about Bunny Mellon.
No, that's a very good name to pull out. Very good. Okay, so we have another question that says, where did David Webb train, and what were his inspirations? So he trained, he was largely self-taught in his interest in jewelry and sort of his references. Like in the archive, we have all these different books that he would pull inspirations from. And Frank, you mentioned he went to the Met all the time. But for specifically jewelry training, he did go to the Penland School of Craft in North Carolina. And he had some relatives, an uncle and a grandfather, who did have like metal smithing. They made like souvenir ashtrays and that sort of thing. So there's a bit of metalworking in his background, but not like extreme jewelry training. I think he really learned like on the job on 47th Street once he got to New York in his late teens.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Let's see.
What's next?
What's next? How did David Webb acquire all those gorgeous carved emeralds? Are they from the Mughal period? It's hard to know exactly what his sourcing was during that time in the 60s and 70s. As I mentioned, we do have like a tremendous amount of material that he collected over time, but I feel like, and especially with jade, he was really ahead of the curve of the fashion trend of jade. He was buying things from antique dealers, like, 1969, he's buying these things, but then they're coming into trend like because of his work with the materials. So he didn't have like a specific source necessarily. It was just sort of working with gem dealers he knew or antique dealers. What do you think it is about David Webb creations that make them both investment worthy and relevant for today's life? That's a good one. How do you feel about that with people coming up at auction and asking about things?
What strikes me is that like it has so much boldness and color and volume. So one thing I say often is that David Webb jewelry will either require or inspire confidence. If you don't already have confidence, put on a piece of David Webb and you will. When you walk in the room with that big cuff or that earring, even if it's just one piece. So I think that's, to me, what really sets it apart. And it's not just big for the sake of being big. It's not just like a big chunky hunk of metal. It's a piece of art that you can sort of wear on your body. I mean, I really feel that way about it. And so to me, that's what stands out most. And that no matter what your style, there's always room in the collection and in your wardrobe for some of that look, some Webb.
I agree. Frank, we have a question specifically for you. Two questions, I guess. What stone is your favorite, and what were your beginnings in jewelry?
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, if I have to have a favorite stone, I think it's maybe just aquamarine. When there's a really beautiful, good quality aquamarine, it's my favorite color, that light blue. Not the most valuable of stones, although can be expensive when it is of the highest quality. And I just love it. I just love that beautiful pool blue. When you see a nice big emerald cut aquamarine, you could just dive into it. So I have to say, if I had any stone that I loved, it would be aqua. And I started in jewelry really just because I loved it and I was passionate about it. Both of my grandmothers had some nice jewelry, but very different styles. And I worked for many years in restaurants and events, but I owned a restaurant in San Francisco for a time, and was coming to the end of that career because it's quite grueling and it's really best for young people. And I just decided to pursue jewelry because I'd had stacks of books. I've been reading books on jewelry and loving it and going to exhibitions, and it really was a passion. So I just pursued it, and I went to Bulgari and got a job selling jewelry, and that's how I started.
That's really, I feel like that's the largest trend I see when I talk to people who are in the jewelry world, is like self-education. Like you have to have that drive and passion and really go for it to like learn it all yourself and immerse yourself in it. And I feel like that's the best way to do it. So good job.
And I think you're like me. I mean, a huge part of the battle is in any job is loving what you do, right? And no matter what we're working on. There are challenges, there are stresses in any job. But the reality is, if you love looking at jewelry all day, that's a huge part of the battle. And I do. I could look at it all day.
Same.
Cheap jewelry, expensive jewelry, fake jewelry. I don't care. I just like it. And so that's really why I feel so lucky to do what I do.
Yep. I've seen you prowling around the Metropolitan Pavilion Antique Show. I know how it goes.
Yes, you have.
Yes. Okay, here's a good one. What comes first, the lady or the jewels? And I don't really know the context of this question, but I like it as a question.
I like it too. Well, I think the lady comes first.
Yeah.
In fashion, I always wish the jewel came before the dress, and it doesn't always. You know, we're always seeing things about, especially like red carpet dressing. You know,
Right.
when stylists and celebrities are borrowing jewels from the brands, they borrow from you. And I always think, wouldn't you start with the jewel and then just find a dress to complement the jewel? But they don't. So we need to work on that, Levi. We need to make.
I agree.
Start with the jewelry, but certainly the lady comes first. But you can change your style too over the course of time. You know, some people, you know, you come against women sometimes are like, no, I just need simple diamond studs and my ring and that's it. I'm not, but it's an acquired taste like anything else. Once you start wearing something and you feel comfortable in it and you get some compliments in it, you're probably going to want to build that wardrobe.
Right. Okay, here's a question from me. It says, Levi, can you tell us more about the newly announced project at David Webb? I'm going to assume that's referencing the exhibition that we've announced.
Yes.
So let me plug that a little bit. We had planned to do an exhibition called A Walk in the Woods in mid-April. Obviously that, you know, with everything going on, we couldn't go through with that timing, but later in the year, we have yet to figure out final dates. We will have an exhibition that is all about David Webb's animals. So I sort of mentioned it earlier, I think, but in the 60s, he won this award called the Cody Award that was all about, you know, you have different categories of winning, and his was a special award for jewelry. And the award was given to him because of all of his amazing animal jewelry at the Metropolitan Pavilion, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Yes, they had a film that they showed called A Walk in the Woods, and it showed all of David Webb's animal jewelry in the forest. So we were inspired by that original film. We made a new film, and then we've got an exhibition planned all around sort of the history of the awards and the animals and all these different things. So stay tuned. Go to our website, and if you click the events page on our website, you can learn all about it and sign up and wait for dates. And we're excited to share it once we're able to share it. Let's see, one other question. From someone beginning to collect jewelry, what would you recommend as a first starter piece? Where to start?
This is one I am asked this all the time, and I think I did a video a few years ago on the five basic starter pieces that you need to have in your collection. So the five that I think are important are a statement necklace, a diamond earring, a kind of a chunky gold bracelet of some sort, a cocktail ring, and a brooch. And I think a brooch is important because it's so versatile. You can wear it, you know, in your hair, on a hat, on the side, on a belt, wherever. So I think those are the starting blocks. But within each of those five, there's an endless variety of ways you can interpret those things. You know, a diamond earring doesn't have to just be a little diamond stud. It can be something more like a big chandelier that is just your signature thing, that's what you wear whenever you get dressed up. So I think that's a really good place to start. And right now, I think it's an interesting time because, you know, so many of our auctions now are moving online. We've been doing lots of online auctions already. It's been the wave of the future for the last couple of years. So I think now during this time of you know, seclusion at home and people are doing everything online, I think it's just accelerating that process. We're getting to a place faster than maybe we would have. Without world events being what they are. So, for instance, we have an online sale coming up in London, and there's actually some great pieces of David Webb, and really great starter pieces that sort of tick all five of those boxes. So those would sort of be the five places to start, and there are great pieces out there right now, great pieces available.
Perfect. Okay, I just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in. I want to say thank you to Frank for joining me. This was really fun.
It was.
Yeah, and to everyone out there, please stay tuned for more webcasts as we go on. Visit our website, follow Frank on Instagram, all of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, Levi. And it was a pleasure. We'll do it again. And it's just everybody stay safe, stay healthy. And we're here to provide any distraction and a little pleasure that we can.
Perfect. Exactly. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot.